It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. And thanks for joining me this morning. I am your host, Brian Beatty. And if this is your first time tuning into this program, this is where we talk about all things residential real estate. If you're considering buying, selling, or investing in real estate, or if you just like to stay informed with our market, this is the program for you. I like to take a lot of national, regional, local market data, apply that to us here in the Low Country, and then rely on my experience and my interactions with clients and other agents. As somebody that's been in the top 1% of agents in our market since 2009, so that again, if you're thinking about making a move or transacting in some way, shape, or form in real estate, that you're an informed consumer. That's what this show is all about. So if you'd like to contact me, you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, I invite you to give me a call personally. My phone number is 843-345-1273, or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold, take a look at my inventory, and search the MLS, of course. And if you're thinking about selling your house, click on the Sell Your Home tab. You can learn more about what I do to market my properties for sale and the success that my team and I have had in doing that. And you can also learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee, which very simply states that I will sell your home in 59 days or less, or I'll sell it for half my commission. So listingsincharleston.com is the website to go to for that. So let me tell you what I want to talk about over the next hour. For the first portion of the show, I want to talk about things that you can avoid doing before selling your house in order to save you money. I'm going to talk about some stories that I'd like to share based on my interactions with some clients and customers, and some things that I've picked up over the past that I think will greatly help you in the event you're considering selling your house. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk specifically about FHA and VA buyers, what they need, and the appraisal requirements, and how that's going to affect you as a buyer and as a seller. We're going to dive deep into some of those appraisal requirements, and some of them might surprise you, so stick around on that one. A little bit later on in the program, we're going to talk about a little bit of a touchy subject, but what do you do when you and your real estate agent disagree on something? You know, in real estate, it's not always a perfect transaction. It's a stressful time in your life. And inevitably, something is going to come up throughout the process that might cause you to take a step back. And if you ever have a disagreement with a real estate agent, I want to give you some tips and some ideas on how to make sure that that situation is handled properly so that we can move forward and so that we can ultimately accomplish your goal of buying or selling a home. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the market. I'm going to give you very specific numbers based on the Tri-County area. We're going to talk about Berkeley, Dorchester, and Charleston County. We're going to talk about specific locations within those counties and what's happening with regard to inventory and sales and price. So that's what we're going to talk about here on this program over the next hour. And again, if you have any questions for me, you want to reach out to me personally, you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, call 843-345-1273 or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. So let me tell you a little story. I had somebody call me a few weeks ago, and they said, Brian, we're ready to list our home for sale. We've just spent the past 2 months or so preparing our home for sale. We've painted the entire inside of the house. We've re-landscaped the outside of the house. We installed granite countertops. We refinished our floors. We installed a tile backsplash in the kitchen. We've done a lot of things to try and make this home appeal to as many buyers as possible, ready to list our home. So I set an appointment. I sat down with them. We walked through the property, of course. I determined what I think we can sell it for, which they agreed to. We talked about my marketing plan, how we're going to find buyers for the house. They agreed to that. And ultimately, we decided to work together. I also, of course, learned about what they're interested in buying. The idea here was to sell their house and then move into a larger, more expensive home in the same general area. So we talked about what they're looking for in the new home so that they're comfortable in putting their home up for sale and that the expectations they have with the new home they buy is consistent with current market trends. So we learned more about what they're looking to purchase. And after leaving the meeting, I said, all right, we've got a few bits of homework here to do. These are all the things that I'm going to do. These are the things that you're going to do. I would like for you to talk to your lender. I have my own preferred lender that you're more than happy to talk to, or you can choose any lender you'd like. But we need to get you pre-approved for the purchase. Let's do that first before we spend a lot of time preparing your home for sale, doing the marketing, and ultimately listing the property. So to make a long story short, they spoke with several lenders, and they found out that they actually didn't get approved for the home that they wanted to ultimately buy. They were not approved for the purchase price that they wanted to move into. And so obviously the sellers were upset. They were pretty shocked, actually. They spent a bunch of free time. Basically every free moment they had this summer was spent fixing up their house, and they spent a lot of money doing it. And so ultimately they learned that they were unable to buy in the new price range. They had too much debt, not enough income to cover the increase in the monthly payment. And it caused them to not move forward with the sale of the property. And so what's the moral of this story? Well, I think the moral here is that as soon as you commit emotionally to the idea of selling your house, before you start doing repairs, before you start doing a bunch of stuff that's going to cause you to spend money or spend time preparing your home for sale, call a real estate agent. Call me. I will walk through your house and I will tell you what should be done versus what can be done versus what you should not do, and things that won't result in a good return on investment for you. It'll be a waste of your money and time. And for the sellers that kind of listen to me and do the things that they need to do to prepare their home for sale, I commend the seller for preparing their home for sale. They really were proactive and did a lot of very nice things. It was a very nice home. It was ready to sell. But ultimately, they were unable to purchase the home that they wanted to move into. So before you decide to list your house, call a real estate agent to determine what repairs and renovations you should make before you spend that time and money. And then also make sure that when you sell your home, you have the ability to afford the home you want to move into. So that's number one, is don't sell your home before you get pre-qualified or pre-approved to buy your new home. Number two, don't guess on your loan payoff and don't guess on the closing costs associated with selling your property. When you meet with a real estate agent, or if you're selling your home for sale by owner, you have to have a very firm understanding of the costs associated with selling your property. You're going to have the commission. You're going to have attorney's fees, which is somewhere between $300 and $400. You're going to have something called deed stamps or transfer taxes. That's $3.70 for every $1,000 your house is worth. Then you've got smaller things like a CL 100. You've got some miscellaneous costs for recording the mortgage, or attorney-based expenses like a courier fee or a wire fee or so on and so forth. Those are minimal expenses. But then the other thing is that you're responsible for your fair share of the property taxes for that year. So if you sell your home September 30th, then you're responsible for 9 months worth of property taxes that you have to pay the buyer out of your proceeds at closing. So there's a bunch of costs obviously associated with selling your property, and they are different from the buyer's closing costs. If the buyer has asked you to pay closing costs, one of my requirements as a listing agent that typically represents sellers is that I would like to see a breakdown of those closing costs. It's called a good faith estimate. And if we're agreeing to pay a certain amount in closing costs, on our end, the seller side, we need to know what that amount is going to be. Now, most contracts say up to 3% of the purchase price toward closing costs and prepaids, but it almost always comes in at a different amount in terms of the actual cost from the lender and from the prepaid expenses that buyer is going to have to pay at closing. So it's incredibly important that you have a very firm understanding of your costs associated with selling your property. I'm going to say number three is to not let your emotions take over in this process. It's a very stressful time. There's a lot that goes on. Moving is, in my opinion, one of the most stressful things that you can do. You're uprooting your life. You're moving somewhere else. There's just a lot that goes on in that process. And my role as a real estate agent is to manage it and to set expectations so that our roadmap towards your goal is as straight as possible. We know what we need to do throughout the process to get you there. But don't let your emotions cloud your judgment. And when you're selling a lot of real estate, kind of like I do, I mean, we've already done 100 or so contracts this year. We'll sell close to 200 homes this year. Every seller, every buyer is different. Don't let your emotions dictate whether or not the sale goes through. And most of the time, it's all the small stuff that creates the tipping point for clients. Let's use a home inspection as an example. I'd say be realistic about home inspections. You know that there are going to be things found by the home inspector. Expect it. Expect that unless you're giving the buyer a good deal on the front end, that they're going to come back and they're going to ask for some repairs. Now, obviously, your real estate agent's going to help you get through that list and determine what's major, what's minor, and what's unnecessary. But try not to let your emotions take over. I've said in previous shows that I'm finding right now a lot of buyer agents and buyers are just sending the entire report to a seller and saying, hey, here's what we found, fix it. It's obviously unrealistic to assume that a seller is going to fix every little thing on an inspection report. So be realistic. And the other thing I'll say in that vein is try not to be too friendly with the buyer. And what I mean by that is you can be friendly, but don't become friends during the process. Sometimes your emotion in that regard can cloud your judgment. And sometimes buyers are very good at it. They pull at your heartstrings. They might get you to agree to something that if it was a different buyer or a different scenario, you might not agree to. And at the end of the day, we're here to help you save or earn as much money as possible. So don't agree to fix anything before the repair addendum, or put yourself in a position where you've already committed to something specifically or a certain cost. And just make sure that you're communicating between yourself and your real estate agent and then the other party of the transaction. Try not to put yourself in a position where you're buddy-buddy with the buyer, and then that allows them to feel comfortable enough to ask you for things that they might not necessarily ask you if they didn't have that rapport built. Now, after the transaction, you guys can be the best of friends. But during the transaction, remember that you are trying to save or earn as much money as possible. And once you're under contract, that does not mean that the process stops. There are several stops along the way in which the buyer can ask for repairs, reduce your price, so on and so forth. So just make sure that you're not putting yourself in a situation where you're committing to things before an inspection or before an appraisal, so on and so forth. Protect yourself and just make sure that you're not communicating overly with that potential buyer. And then the last thing that I'm going to say is do not waste your time with buyers that can't spend 30 minutes getting pre-approved for a mortgage. I've talked about this ad nauseum on this program, but it's incredibly important because most buyers are going to go out there and they're going to get a pre-qualification letter, which basically just means that a bank has pulled their credit, they've looked at their recurring debt, the buyer has told them how much money they made, and then the bank says, yes, based on these ratios, you're approved for a mortgage, or you're pre-qualified for a mortgage. But there's a big difference between pre-qualification, pre-approval, and approval. As close as you can get to approval is the preferred strategy to take here, because we, in no way, shape, or form, want to take this property off the market, work through the process, make repairs, maybe give in some form or fashion throughout the contract, and then find out the last week of closing that the buyer can't get financing. We have to try and do everything we can to make sure that if we go under contract, that it stands the best chance possible of closing. So those are just some tips to help you save a little money throughout the home selling process. When we come back, we're going to talk about FHA and VA appraisals. Everything that you need to know about selling your home to an FHA or VA buyer, I'm going to go over coming up next right here on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Remember to reach out to me at 843-345-1273 or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, to learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee. I'm going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 8 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. WTMA. Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, and thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Again, I'm your host, Brian Beatty, and if you're just joining us, this is where we talk about all things residential real estate on this program. We take regional, national, local news, we apply that to us living in the low country, so that if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, you are an informed consumer. It's all about informing you and arming you with the information necessary to help you get the best deal possible and to conduct business in real estate with as little stress and at the most value and income through the sale or purchase of a property to you. So when we took a break, we were talking about the process of selling a property and how to save money. I gave you some tips on what to watch out for, what to do, and what not to do to make sure that you're putting as much money in your pocket as possible. What I want to talk about now is selling a home to FHA and VA buyers. So let me first explain what that is. An FHA home purchase is going to be used through a mortgage that's going to have a 3.5% down payment. In order for you to sell a property to an FHA buyer or a VA buyer, VA, of course, is 100% financing for anybody that's been in the armed forces in some form or fashion. They get something called a certificate of eligibility, and that allows them to buy a home with no money down. When you sell your home to these types of buyers, obviously these buyers are going to get a home inspection. That's going to be standard no matter who you agree to sell your home to. They're going to get a home inspection. But what I want to talk about is the appraisal for FHA and VA buyers specifically. The appraisal process for these types of purchases is unique. It is different than somebody putting down 10 or 20 or 50% or whatever the case might be. Because these are government-backed loans, there are certain conditions that must be met and must be taken into consideration when selling your home and getting this type of mortgage. Some of these things are obvious, some of them not so obvious. Let's start with some of the things that are not so obvious, some things that might surprise you. Let's talk about design first. Now, I am going off of a handbook for FHA mortgages specifically for FHA appraisers. It's 21 pages long, and I've highlighted some things here that just struck me as being very interesting and things that I thought I should share. So number one is design. You know, we don't think very often that an appraisal would take into consideration the design of a home. But it says here that the design is a cohesive element that brings the structural, functional, and decorative elements of a property into a whole. With good design, the property's parts will be in harmony. The whole property, in turn, will be in harmony with its immediate site and environment. Because good design is recognized and desired, the economic life of properties and neighborhoods will be extended, and prices will typically exceed those for properties offering the same number of rooms and area but lacking good design. This competitive advantage usually continues through the entire economic life of the property, and the appraiser must recognize this price differential and reflect it in the comparative adjustments of market data and the final finding of value. So what does that mean? It means that appraisers are going to take into account the design and the aesthetics of your home. So we talk all the time about preparing your home for sale and what's going to attract buyers versus what's not going to attract buyers or turn them away. And we talk about preparing the home for sale, things to do to the property. But I don't think a lot of sellers or agents for that matter realize that the design of the home based on an FHA or VA appraisal has an impact on the value that the appraiser is going to use. Now, I will tell you that I have had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of transactions, and I think it's rare, in my opinion, to see an appraisal that shows a specific line item adjustment for design. And I don't recall it being in the actual appraisal as far as it relates to design, but it should impact the appraiser's perception of your home's value when compared to other homes. So I just thought that was interesting, that design of a home is supposed to play a part in the appraiser's adjustments made to comparable properties. Now let's talk about something like economic life of improvements. When we sit down and I ask questions like how old is your roof and how old is your HVAC and how old is your water heater, how old are the major systems in your house, the reason I'm asking those questions is so that we have a realistic idea of how it impacts value from the buyer's standpoint and how it's going to potentially impact value from an appraisal standpoint. So this says that the total economic life of a building is the period of time from its completion until it can no longer produce services or net return over and above a return on the land value. Economic life can never be longer than the physical life of the property, but may be and frequently is shorter. So it says that a structure that is sound and in good physical condition with many years of physical life remaining may have reached the end of its economic life if its remaining years of physical usefulness will not be profitable. So in other words, what it's saying is that if the systems in your home are at the end of their economic life, if your roof needs to be replaced, and it says here within 2 years that they're supposed to make an adjustment for that. If your home was built in 1995 and your HVAC systems are original, I would expect that both the buyer and the appraiser is going to adjust their value of your home for those items. So it's important that when we sit down and we talk about selling your house, that we have a good idea of the cost associated with replacement and the difference between a home that's sold down the street with a brand new roof and HVAC systems versus your home with 20-year-old roof and HVAC systems, and how that impacts value. All of these things should be determined and discussed at the beginning and onset of the listing so that we've got some proper expectations and expectations. So moving on, the most important part about this are the repairs associated with an FHA or VA appraisal. So it says here that the required repairs are limited to those repairs necessary to preserve the continued marketability of the property and to protect the health and safety of the occupants. And it goes on to say things like deferred maintenance. It says any operable or useful element that reaches the end of its useful life within 2 years should be replaced. With respect to such deferred maintenance items, exercise good judgment in requiring repairs. And then it says that if you're replacing something because of age, if an element is functioning well, do not recommend replacement simply because of its age. So that's interesting, right? If your HVAC is 20 years old, but it's working well, FHA or VA appraisers aren't going to require that you repair it or replace it, but it does say that they are going to ding the value of your home because of the age of it. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty here in terms of what these appraisers look for and what ultimately would prevent an FHA or VA appraisal from going through and allowing a buyer to purchase the property in a certain condition. It's called defective conditions. And it says a property with defective conditions is unacceptable until the defects or conditions have been remedied and the probability of further damage is eliminated. Defective conditions include things like defective construction, poor workmanship, evidence of continued settlement, excessive dampness, leakage, decay, termites, and other readily observable conditions that impair the safety, sanitation, or structural soundness of the dwelling. So it goes on to say things about the crawl space and the attic, and that it must be properly vented. You can't have pooling water in your crawl space. Mechanical systems all have to be in operating condition. Heating has to be in operating condition. Electricity, you can't have any electrical issues. You also can't have things like broken windows, broken doors, broken steps, inadequate or blocked doors, steps without handrails, so on and so forth. So when we walk through a property and we're looking at things that might impact the buyer's ability to get a FHA or VA mortgage based on the appraisal, these are things that your agent and you as the seller need to be aware of, because if we put your home under contract and you're not willing to make any repairs at the contract amount that you've agreed to initially, yet an inspection reveals items that an FHA or VA lender is going to require in order to give a mortgage, then we're at a standstill. We're at a point where we either agree to make the repairs, or we offer them a credit to do them, or we inflate the price and do the repairs, but the repairs are going to have to be done in order for that mortgage to be approved. Now, it goes on to say some other examples like a wood floor's finish that has been worn off to expose the bare wood must be sanded and refinished. However, a wood floor that has darkened with age but has an acceptable finish doesn't need to be polished or refinished. It goes on to say something as simple as peeling interior paint and broken or seriously cracked plaster or sheetrock requires repair and repainting. Something like mishing shrubbery or dead grass on an existing property might not need to be replaced, but if impacts the overall value of the property, the appraiser is going to note it, and it might become a requirement to fix it in order to move forward with selling the property to that specific buyer. So we see a lot of FHA and VA buyers in lower price points, and they're excellent loan products for buyers that don't have a lot of money. You know, if your home is, let's say you're a $200,000 home, the majority of people that are going to view your home are going to be FHA or VA buyers. They're going to ask you for closing costs, and they're typically not going to have a bunch of money laying around to make a bunch of repairs. All of these things need to be taken into consideration before putting your home on the market, so we have a realistic idea of what ultimately you're going to walk away with after negotiations, after closing costs, and after repairs. So if that's something that I can help you with, you're thinking about selling your home, obviously I have a good understanding of what it's going to take to get us there. And it's important that we understand things like FHA and VA appraisal requirements because it does have an impact potentially on the seller's bottom line. If you'd like to contact me to discuss that, you're thinking about selling your home, give me a call. My number is 843-345-1273. Again, that's 843-345-1273. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. Submit your information, your property address. Happy to tell you what your home is worth. And if you want to take that next step and put your home on the market, would love to help you with that as well. Also, research my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. All that can be done at listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. And when we come back, we're going to talk about a bit of a sensitive subject. What happens when you have an argument with your realtor or the realtor doesn't agree with something that your client is doing? How do you bridge that gap? How do you overcome those obstacles? So I'm going to talk more about that. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty next on 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Expert news and views on the Lowcountry real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, and thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I always like to take a little bit of time in my program to say thank you for those of you that contact me with your real estate needs, whether you have a general knowledge question or if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate. I always appreciate those of you that trust me with your business. I've been in the top 1% of agents here since 2009, sell a few hundred homes a year, and would obviously appreciate the opportunity to earn your business as well. So if you're thinking about making a move, buying, selling, or maybe investing in real estate, I invite you to give me a call personally. My number is 843-345-1273, or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold, search the MLS, learn more about me. And if you're thinking about selling your house, click on the Sell Your Home tab. You can learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. So again, listingsincharleston.com is the website to go to for that. So I want to talk about a bit of a sensitive subject now. This is something that I don't think many real estate agents would talk about on the radio. And it's not something that I think many agents want to admit. But what happens when you hire a real estate agent and they lay out a plan to help you accomplish your goals, whether you're buying, selling, or investing in real estate, and you hit a speed bump along the way? You have a difficult conversation, or you have an argument, or they don't do something that they said they were going to do. How do you approach those types of situations with your real estate agent? Now, I'm going to give you a few tips to just get through some of these difficult conversations and help you understand maybe where both people are coming from so that ultimately you can get back on track and focus on the goal, which is accomplishing the client's goal. So the first thing that I would say is if you do have an argument with your real estate agent, unless it's a personal issue with that person, try not to make it personal. If you get upset, it can help to remember that you're mad at the idea or the concept, the action or the inaction that's taken place, and not necessarily the person. Now, when we work with people to help buy and sell real estate, we work with all types of people. And most of the time when we're talking about disagreements on this program, it's usually the other people on the other side of the table. If you're selling your house and you're working with your real estate agent, how do we work through a difficult time with the buyer and their agent? But I don't think a lot of agents want to admit that it's not always a smooth and perfect process. It's a stressful process. And at the end of the day, we're dealing with personality types. And there's all different types of personalities out there. And it helps to have an understanding of who you're working with. You've got people that feel very passionately about ideas and that at times might be perceived to be difficult to work with. You have people that are pushovers and they'll do whatever you say they're going to do. Or you've got people that are just happy and easygoing and it doesn't matter. Let's just get the job done. I'm not going to worry about it. And then you've got people that are just flat out rude, right? So of course we're dealing with all different personality types, and a lot of what I'm going to say can help to be applied to working with the other side of the table, the other end of the transaction, if you're selling your home, working with the buyer and their agent. But I think the first thing is to try not to make it personal and try to avoid putting down the other person's ideas or beliefs. If you've ever been on the receiving end of someone's tirade or put downs, you know how valuable being respectful and using respectful language and having an appropriate behavior can be. So instead of saying things you might be thinking like, that's a stupid idea, try saying things like, I don't agree and here's why. Resist the temptation to yell or use sarcasm or make derogatory comments, and you'll have a much better chance of getting your point across and getting through that tough time. The other thing that I found to be extremely valuable is use I statements to communicate how you feel rather than what you think or what you want or need. Using you statements can always sound a bit argumentative, in my opinion. So as an example, you'd say something like, you need to drop the price or you won't sell your home. That's a very different way of saying something like, in my experience, doing this action will create this result. So can we take a little bit of time so I can further explain my point of view and answer any questions you might have? It should be a conversation, and it should be a situation where you're allowing yourself to take in the other person's point of view. It's important to understand that, both sides of the story are legitimate until all information has been shared and each person's point of view has been properly conveyed, right? So remember, I'm not here to tell you what to do as your real estate agent. I'm here to counsel you based on my experience so that you can make the best decision possible for you. And sometimes, I'll be honest, my clients and I have very real conversations. And it's not because I'm a confrontational person. It's because I know what your goal is and I know what it's going to take to help you accomplish it. And when I see you taking actions or steps that put you further away from your goal rather than closer to it, I think it's my responsibility as a professional and as your advocate to let you know why I think your actions might not help you ultimately accomplish your goal of buying or selling your home. It's being real with people. It's trusting people. It's having a good rapport so that you feel comfortable enough saying things. And I would say that the majority of agents out there prefer to just avoid conversations like this altogether. They don't like confrontation. I would say that the number one issue that agents have with their sellers, but that they don't bring up, is price. Agents go into the meeting, they say, yeah, we can sell your home for this amount of money. Here's the marketing plan that's going to get it done. You list your property for sale, and then 30, 60, 90, 120, however many days go by, and your home hasn't sold. And here's what's happening behind the scenes. The agent is scared to tell you that you need to drop your price and that they were wrong for fear that, number one, you're not going to trust that real estate agent because they told you a price that you wanted to hear rather than the truth. Or number two, they're going to fire you because that's not the price that they agreed to sell the house for. If they have a certain goal in mind and you told them you could accomplish that goal, but market trends are telling you something else, that agent might not want to lose the listing because it's generating buyers for them. It's generating calls and business for them. And they'd rather have a listing that they can't sell that might generate some buyer leads for them rather than just telling you the truth and saying, look, I thought that we could get this done. I thought the market was going in a specific direction. I think we need to readjust. Here's why. Here's what the market is doing. Here are the homes that have sold since we've listed. And now here's the new price that I think that your home is worth. That should be happening with real estate agents and their sellers. But, I've shared in previous programs that we have had thousands and thousands and thousands of homes come off the market that did not sell. I think the number is somewhere around 8,000. I'd have to look that number up. But we have had an extraordinarily large amount of properties that have listed and that have not sold with their first, second, or third real estate agents. And I will say this, over 60% of the listings that I sell were previously listed with another real estate agent. So I go into these situations where communication was not ideal between the seller and the agent. And I have to go in, and at times I'm perceived to be too blunt, but I ask the seller the question, hey, on a scale from 1 to 10, how straightforward do you want me to be with you about your price and about this process? Because I have some things that I'd like to say, but I don't want you to be offended at my opinion. And when you position it that way, obviously sellers say, yes, tell me the truth. Tell me what's really going on here. And if I think they're overpriced or if I think there's something going on with the house, then I think, again, it's my responsibility as a professional to tell them those things regardless of how that might make them feel emotionally. I'm supposed to be their window into the real estate market. I'm supposed to be their trusted advisor, and sometimes that means having difficult conversations. but it also requires that you stay calm and you be respectful. The most important thing you can do is to keep a conversation on track by staying calm and rational when you might feel angry or passionately about something, especially if the person you talk to gets heated or they're the type of person that does not react well to information that they don't necessarily want to hear. But again, respect goes beyond difficult conversations. It's being helpful and considerate toward clients, family, friends, people in general. And it helps us to establish a foundation so that for those times when we might disagree, we have a good foundation built on respect and professionalism so that we can get through those tough times and get toward the goal of buying or selling a home. So if you have any questions, if you're considering selling or buying a house, maybe you've had a bad experience in the past, let's have a conversation about it. Let's communicate and let's see what we might be able to do to work together. I can be reached at 843-345-1273, or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee, my communication guarantee, all that and more. So when we come back, I'm going to give you some specific numbers and what's going on in your neck of the woods here in the Low Country. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA. WTMA. Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, and thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA, where we talk about all things residential real estate. We've been talking about quite a lot this morning. We've talked about things to do to avoid costly mistakes when it comes to selling your home. We've talked about FHA and VA appraisals and some of the requirements that they have among buyers and sellers from a condition standpoint for your home. We just talked about having difficult conversations between clients and agents and how to overcome some of those obstacles. And now the moment the majority of you have been waiting for, I believe, which is the market stats portion of this program. Every month I go through what's going on in our market, and I really drill down deep into not just counties, but individual areas within Charleston. So what I'll say before I start to rifle off this information is that if you're considering buying, selling, or investing in real estate, and you want to hire a professional, somebody that's been in the top 1% of agents since 2009, we've already done 100 deals this year, please call me personally. My number is 843-345-1273, or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. So let's just talk about the market in general for a second. And I'm going to go through quite a bit of information, but there's a lot going on in our market right now. I want to get to everybody. So new listings, the amount of new listings that have hit the market so far this year. And I'm going to talk about year-to-date numbers versus what has happened in 2014 up to this point in time. So that's going to be consistent throughout the majority of these statistics. But new listings are up 11%. We've had a little over 14,000 properties hit the market so far this year. Pending sales, which means properties that go under contract, is up 24%. We had an awesome year in 2014, and the fact that pending contracts is up 24% is a huge number. I don't think some of you realize how big that number actually is for our market. When we look at actual closings are up 20%. We've already had almost 10,000 closings at the end of July in our market. Last year, we were at 8,000 at this point in time. That's a big jump. That's 2,000 extra transactions. Days on market. If you're selling your house, this is just market view total. 65 days on average is what it's going to take you to sell your home. That's down 22% from 2014. If you look at the average sales price across the board, we're up 3.5%. And if you look at the percentage of list price to sales price, expect to get about 96% of your asking price. That's market wide, but let's drill deep and let's look at Berkeley County. Berkeley County, new listings are up 16%. Closings are up 25%. The average sales price is up 7.5%. You're going to get 97% if you sell your home, and your home is going to sell on average in 59 days for a single-family home. Looking within Berkeley County at Daniel Island has had 10% less new listings than 2014, but closings are up 12%. The average sales price is up 15.5%. Homes are selling for 98.5% of their asking price, and they're selling in 69 days. Hanahan has had only a 1.5% increase in new listings, but closings are up 50%. 147 properties sold at the end of July in 2014, and 221 properties have sold at the end of July so far this year. Prices are up 6.5%. You're going to sell your property for 96%, and it's going to sell in 61 days on average. In Goose Creek, new listings are up 26%. Closings are up 21%. The average sales price is up 5.5%. You're going to get about 98% of your asking price, and your home's going to sell in 55 days if you're in Goose Creek and Moncks Corner. Now, if you're in Wando or Cainhoy, there really hasn't been any change in new listings, but closings are up 40%. The average sales price is up almost 13%. Properties are closing for 99% of their asking price and in 70 days on average. Now let's move over to Charleston County. Charleston County has seen about a 7.5% increase in new listings. Closings are up 19%. The average sales price is up 4%. Properties are selling for 96% of their asking price, and they're selling in 65 days. Now, within Charleston County, if we look at downtown Charleston, new listings are down 20%. Closings are up 3.5%. The average sales price, interestingly, is down 9%. But remember, there's a big difference between the home that needs fixing up and the $3 million South of Broad. So look at your own specific area for downtown Charleston. But they're selling for 93% of their asking price, and on average, they're selling in 106 days. Now, if you look at the upper peninsula of downtown Charleston, we've got about a 13% decrease in new listings. Closings are down 2%, but the average sales price is up 5.5%. They're selling for 95.5% of their asking price, and they're selling in 56 days. James Island, new listings are down 4%. Closings are up 26%. The average sales price is up 13.5% on James Island. You're going to sell for 96% of your asking price and in 55 days. Johns Island, new listings are up 40%. Closings are up 87%. They've almost doubled. The average sales price is up 5%. You're going to get 97.5% of your asking price, and it's going to sell in 53 days on average. West Ashley, we've had a 6% increase in new listings, but a 13% increase in closings. The average price is up 9.5%. You're going to sell your home for 96% of your asking price and in 49 days. We look at North Charleston, 13% increase in new listings, 37% increase in closings, a 13% increase in the average sales price. You're going to sell your home in 96% of your asking price and in 54 days. Now, Upper Mount Pleasant, we've had a 5.5% increase in new listings. Closings are up 10%. The average sales price is up 9%. You're going to sell your home for 98% of your asking price and in 70 days. Now, if you're in Lower Mount Pleasant, between the Isle of Palms connectors and the base of the bridge, we've had a 12% increase in new listings, just a 1% increase in closings, but prices are up 9.5%. You're going to sell your home for 95% of the asking price and in 52 days. Folly Beach, new listings up 13%, closings are up 60%. The average sales price is down 1%. You're going to sell for 91% of your asking price and in 143 days. Isle of Palms, no real change in new listings, but closings are up 46%. Average sales price is up 14.5%. You're going to sell for 92% of your asking price in 145 days. Sullivan's Island, a 37% increase in new listings, a 10% reduction in closings. Those prices are up 7.5%. You're going to get 92% of your asking price, and you're going to sell in 123 days. Now, Dorchester County, we've had a 15% increase in new listings, a 17% increase in closings. The average sales price is up 6%. You're going to sell for 97% of your asking price in 61 days. In Somerville, we've had a 14% increase in listings, a 19% increase in closings. Prices are up 4.5%. You're going to sell for 97% of your asking price and in 66 days. In the Dorchester Road corridor, 18% increase in new listings, 11% increase in closings. Prices are up almost 10%. You're going to sell for 97% of your asking price in 47 days. And if you're in the Hollywood, Ravenel, Megget area, we've had a 34% increase in new listings, a 10% increase in closings. Prices are up 25%. No real change in the asking price, 93%, and it's going to sell in about 90 days. So if you want specific information on what your home is worth, please contact me directly. My number is 843-345-1273, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, input your address. I'll tell you what your home is worth over the phone, or I'll come by in person and give you a personal analysis, an appraisal at no cost. And if you're thinking about selling your home, click on the Sell Your Home tab. You can learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning from 8 till 9. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.